Would censoring the Nazis have stopped the Holocaust from taking place? That's the implicit justification for the regime of internet censorship that currently exists in modern Germany. But one prominent voice, Nadine Strossen, says that censorship actually didn't work. Strossen is the former head of the American Civil Liberties Union and the daughter of a Holocaust survivor. Now, in a recent op-ed for Fox News, she made the case that censorship would not have brought down Nazi Germany.
Her article came in response to CBS News host Margaret Brennan's curious claim to Vice President J.D. Vance that the Nazis had successfully weaponized free speech. Let's watch.
He was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views.
Strossen countered this, making the case that censorship laws that did exist during the Nazi regime actually helped Hitler rise to power because he was a free speech martyr, or portrayed himself that way. Joining us now to discuss all of this is Nadine Strossen, who is now additionally a senior fellow at the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. Welcome to Rising, Nadine. I've admired you for a long time. Always love conversing with you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Robbie and Linda.
So I think this is such a vital point. You know, you write in this op-ed, and I've heard you make this point before, that, you know, yes, if widespread censorship might have produced some vastly preferable historical result and saved millions of lives, I think we'd all have to consider it. But your point is that actually we kind of did test that because they did practice censorship against the Nazis. It just didn't work. Why don't you tell us more?
And what's so interesting about that, Robbie, is that this is the consensus of historians as well as activists on behalf of human rights, including Jewish anti-Semitic crusaders during the Weimar Republic, 1918 to 1933, during which Hitler rose to power, that there was a vast array of laws suppressing hate speech, both criminal laws, civil laws. They were very strictly enforced by prosecutors, and there was an organization in Germany at the time, very similar to the Anti-Defamation League now, that provided resources, including lawyers, for individuals Jewish people who had been targeted by anti-Semitic hate speech, bringing complaints. There were many prosecutions, many convictions, prison sentences, including of prominent Nazis such as Julius Streicher, the publisher of the notorious Der Stürmer, which was repeatedly confiscated. Hitler himself was literally banned from speaking in public for several years in many states in Germany. And not only did the Nazis try to gain sympathy out of this censorship, they actually succeeded, including, according to crusaders against anti-Semitism, one of whom wrote, "This is a failed strategy. We are simply creating martyrs."
That's incredible. And you also, have observed in the past, there was plenty of actual crime, organizing to overthrow the state, to commit violence that is not free speech, that could have been prosecuted more harshly than the German state did. So they went all out on suppressing speech, which backfires, and then were too lenient in terms of actually punishing violence and terrorism.
Well, to say the least, Hitler and his henchpeople actually tried to overthrow the German government. They had a coup and received the ridiculously lenient sentence of 5 years in prison at a time when the general sentence for that kind of treasonous, violent activity was the death penalty, or at least life imprisonment, or at least being disqualified from running for political office again. Hitler only served 8 months of that already low 5-year term, during which he wrote Mein Kampf and comes out and is allowed to run for office. And the trouble is, as you rightly say, Robbie, that he and his henchpeople literally got away with murder, physically assaulting and killing their political opponents, communists, socialists, Jews, and other minority people.
Nadine, is very helpful to get that historic context, especially as this conversation has become a bit of part of the zeitgeist here in the U.S. What's your take on what lessons there are to be learned from that experience, especially today here in the U.S. in an era where clearly social media has an outsized impact on the kind of discourse that we're experiencing, especially in politics?
That if we are concerned, as we should be, about speech that conveys dangerous, evil, hateful ideas, our goal is to suppress the ideas. And the effective way of doing that is not through punitive criminal law. I would add the effective way to do that is also not through shaming, shunning, ostracizing, and canceling. Rather, the effective way is through counter information, through persuasion, through education, trying to change people's minds, and also to very vigorously punish actually violent, discriminatory, illegal conduct.
Your organization, the ACLU, has done such good work over time, as have organizations like the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, in defending the rights of very obnoxious and even in some cases evil people to practice their free speech, on the understanding that if their speech can be suppressed, then everyone's speech can be suppressed, and also that the authorities cannot be trusted to determine hateful speech from good speech. What counts as hateful speech is different to every person. My sense now is that misinformation is almost the new hate speech, in terms of it being a justification used by many well-meaning people, but to really constrain the guardrails of the conversations, particularly online. This has become such a main objective for the European Union, for instance, to target this. What are your concerns as regulators look at how to change the rules on social media platforms, ostensibly aiming at getting rid of this, what they describe as misinformation?
It presents exactly the same problems as the well-intentioned but backfiring suppression of hate speech, that it simply empowers government or powerful private tech titans to pick and choose which ideas they consider to be inaccurate or dangerous, which is really dangerous discretion because it leads to suppression of a lot of valuable speech. Conversely, as we saw in the situation of punishing the Nazis for hateful speech, it does not diminish the spreading of that feared, dangerous misinformation. In fact, it draws people's attention to it and support for it. And many social scientists have shown that, due to the psychology that is common to us human beings, that if you try to suppress conspiracy theories or other disinformation, for those people who are inclined to believe it, it just increases their support. They say, oh, well, this must be true. Why would people be so afraid of it or trying to suppress it? So again, the answer, not only in terms of free speech principles, but in terms of actual pragmatic concerns of what works, is not to try to suppress disinformation. That's never going to work, but rather to use more speech, accurate information, giving people the resources, the media information literacy, to do their own research, to learn which sources are trusted or not.
Nadine, it sounds like you're in part, while I don't want to put words in your mouth, in part you are advocating for fact-checking, which of course we have had a lot of pushback from this particular administration, and independently members of the private sector have moved away from it. Who do you believe should be doing that fact-checking, and is there an important role for that in this current discussion?
Well, Linda, with all due respect, it's not objection to fact-checking itself. The objection is to any kind of centralized gatekeeper that is purporting to make a determination for everybody else in the country as to what is true and what is false. And after all, the most contested matters are not narrow, objectively falsifiable or verifiable facts, but rather matters of analysis, analysis, opinion, perspective, and it is for each of us individuals to make our own determinations as to what we think is a worthy and valuable perspective or idea, and perhaps for parents and teachers to make those determinations on behalf of their own young children or students.
Nadine Strossen, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your expertise.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much.
Next up on Rising, looks like MAGA is getting involved in the budget battle. We will discuss.